I'd have been very upset if I'd gone to that work and then hadn't recorded, right? So I'm Vicki Cook. I think I know all of you. I'm the director of the Center for Online Learning Research and Service. And this is just a fun topic that I have been asked to give this presentation across the U.S. at about 6 different institutions so far. I find the generational literature interesting. Some people say that it has absolutely no value. I'll leave that up to you. It really doesn't make a lot of difference whether you believe in the generational differences or not. There are expectations that students bring in that are different each year depending on where our culture is. And of course, every time we talk about students, a lot of people tend to look at students in different segments of labels. And this is a disclaimer for this presentation. This is not to label anyone. I believe everyone should have the opportunity to say, I belong to X number of generations, and it doesn't really matter what your birth year is. However, as we all know, things happen in the culture and across the world at different points in history. And so our historians would probably be the first to tell us that we need to pay attention to those types of events. And they do play on our students and how they develop. So with that in mind, I will also tell you that this is a 3.5-hour presentation, and so you are getting the fast-forwarded version. So we're going to get in some of my favorite parts of the research and the literature surrounding Generation Z, and there are a couple of videos that I want to share with you, but I think that I would like to hear from you as well about what you think about Generation Z. So first of all, how many of you know Star Wars, right? Yeah, everybody? Well, that's good. I'm really glad. I'd be worried about what cave you were living in if you didn't know anything about Star Wars, right? So let's start with this.
I have lived long enough to see the same eyes in different people. I see your eyes. I know your eyes. Follow me.
Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
All right, every generation has a story to tell. So which generation owns Star Wars? Who owns Star Wars? Who can tell me when it was first created?
1977.
1977. Thank you, Carrie. That's really good. Usually I get sometime before 1980. So thank you for that.
I went on 3 different dates, first dates, to see the same damn thing. I hated it.
Hilarious. That's great. I didn't know that. You do have a story to tell. So then, when did the second group of Star Wars movies come out?
My generation.
And it was about what
like
year?
2000.
2000.
Yeah.
All right. And now, when was the most recent one? Last year. And so we have 3 different generations who say their generation owns Star Wars. Can the same be said of other media that we have in our culture?
Sure.
Like?
Rap music.
Rap music, all right.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, absolutely. I think even country music, right? There's different kind of that old country and then a new country. Well, when we think about the number of generations that we have in both our classrooms and in our workforce today, we need to realize we have 5 generations in those 2 areas. We have everyone from the veteran generation, which they are now beginning to retire, although if you look across our campus, you will find many of them who are still here. They are in emeritus positions, and they are impacting what is happening on our campus through their continued engagement. That is happening across the U.S. We also have baby boomers. Carrie was talking about baby boomers. And then we have, what comes after baby boomers? Who can tell me?
Gen X.
Gen X, and then millennials, and then Gen Z.
Is there a Gen Y?
There is, there
Okay.
is. So some of these later generations between Millennial and Gen Z, we have different naming conventions for. And so sometimes you'll see literature that talks about Gen Y and it's confused with the Millennial piece. This is a PowerPoint presentation. You are all welcome to pull any of the information off of here that you would like to dig deeper into. At Colors, we always use PowerPoint, or we don't use PowerPoint, we always use websites instead of PowerPoint. So please feel free to go anywhere that you would like to. I thought you might find it interesting that the average age in higher education of professors in the US is currently 42. The average age of faculty at UIS is 47. And we have an article that professors are just not ready to retire. And you might find this pretty interesting as to why professors don't want to retire and how institutions are utilizing those folks still in through either research components or teaching components or mentoring and working with students. So does anyone know where the generational names came from and why we use them? There's an NPR article that's linked here, and it really came from Tom Brokaw. And Tom Brokaw introduced the idea of generational names to give credence to what he was trying to describe in different generations coming up through the workforce. And since then, it has caught on. But there are some people who really push back on this idea of generations. And so there are a lot of people who don't believe that there are generational differences and that it is ridiculous to have allowed a news anchor to have created this whole idea. How many of you are familiar with this list from Beloit College?
It depresses me every year.
It depresses. Cecilia is. If you're not familiar with this, this comes out every year, the end of August, and Beloit is in Wisconsin, and they put together a list of things that include the mindset of the current class. So if I can get it up a little bit. So the current class that entered, there has always been a digital swap meet called eBay. They weren't alive when eBay wasn't existed. If you go down through there, you see both pluses and minuses. Some of these kids grew up with the whole idea of Columbine and Sandy Hook, and they never heard Harry Carey try to sing during the 7th inning at Wrigley Field. Well, that is really important this year, right? I saw a piece not too long ago on TV, I think it was over the weekend, where they actually unearthed some Harry Carey things that they were playing in honor of the Cubs. And of course, this new generation, that won't be important for.
No, Vicki,
Yes.
I'm kind of in that realm now where I expect stuff more immediately
Yes?
and things like that. And I just can't imagine not seeing the old way, growing up with never having to wait a little bit for something or stuff like that. Now,
How does that
these kids
change
really just
students'
expect it.
perceptions?
Oh, absolutely.
And how do we react? Because sometimes we get pretty aggravated, right? When a student emails us and 10 minutes later they're emailing us again because we haven't responded yet. And yet, it's this whole idea of immediate satisfaction. I immediately want a response. And so how we set that up is very important, especially when we're teaching classes and dealing with students, so that they know that there's going to be some delay. So that they know it may take you a few hours to get back to them, or you only check email a few times a day, but do they like using email? No. Email is the last thing they want to do. I just had a discussion with Bill Wilmer this morning, and we were providing some things for a student, and he said he'd sent it to the student, but the student hadn't yet responded. I said, because they're probably not going to check email until sometime over the weekend. And so it's just the way it works. We do make generational assumptions, however, and I'm going to share this with you if you haven't seen this.
your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Hang the shining star upon the highest bough, and have yourself a merry little Christmas now.
So when we assume that kids are only on their phones and they're totally disconnected from what we are doing in the classroom, this video really gets, and of course Apple is really good at this type of marketing, right? This whole video gets to the idea that these students want to be connected, but they want to be connected through technology. They're looking at ways to really connect with each other and with their environment, pulling in the technology tools that they really like and they have grown up with. Do you realize, when was the iPhone created?
Oh, what was the first one?
7.
Okay.
Yeah, very close. Very 2007. So kids have never grown up not having cellular devices, mobile devices, and they've had some pretty impressive devices when you think about it. And so now, you know, we have, I went to one institution and I had a faculty member tell me that she made the students, when they came in the door, put all of their cell phones in a basket by the door. And so everybody had to put their cell phones in a basket by the door, not for testing, not for when they were going to be doing something special, but every day when they came to class. So as we talked and as she thought about it, she realized maybe her approach was not working very well because students hated her classes, absolutely hated her classes. And a colleague teaching the exact same subject but other sections actually engaged the students with using devices in the work that they were doing in the classroom. They used a back channel. How many of you use a back channel? Anybody? So a back channel is just a piece of web app that you can use. There are several. What's your favorite, Michelle?
It varies.
Today's Meet, is that good?
Right.
All right. So Today's Meet is one. There are others. And you can set it up so the students in your class can share opinions, can share thoughts, can ask questions, and it helps you to address things on the fly. So you can have it up and available, or you can have someone in your class actually monitoring that for the entire class. And it only saves the information for a short period of time and then it disappears. So it's not something you'd post to Blackboard or to actually save. So Generation Z versus the millennial students, and I've kind of lumped all of the Generation Y and X and Y in here. So the millennials are very different, and they are very much right now a force in the workforce and in higher education. But there are some differences between Gen Z and the millennials, and this is what in the next 2 to 3 years we really need to pay attention to. So 1% have health care provided by their employers as important in the coming years. Having to move back in with parents the day after graduation, 3% worry about that. 6% say the economy, and you can read all around there, but 32% are concerned about the ability to find a job. Now, how does that impact how you work with students on campus? This is what the majority of those students are worried about.
Are these millennials and Gen Z, or this is?
This is the, let me pull that back up here. So this is 1,001 U.S. students who graduated within the last few months. So 557 millennials. And then when we look down here, we can see what the Gen Zs are. 21% of Gen Zs are more concerned about the cost of education than the millennials were. So the millennials, their biggest thing is finding a job. Gen Z, their biggest thing is how they're going to pay for higher ed. I think it's interesting. Look at the aspirations after college. Millennials, financial stability, and being in their dream job. 32% of Gen Zs want to find their dream job, while 34% of millennials want stability, financial stability. When you think about Gen Zs, the big thing that keeps jumping out of the literature is that these are passionate students. These are students who really want to make a difference. They want their dream job, that they want to make a difference in the world. The millennial generation was a generation that was born during economic difficulties, lots of ups and downs. They've seen swings in the stock market and in economies. They see their parents struggling with finances, and they're working on how to pay for college. Gen Z understands those things, but they really want to make a difference nonetheless. Let me go back here. So, how does it affect us using technology in the classroom? How many of you use technology in your job, whether you're teaching or whether you're working with students in a different way? Everybody in the room primarily. So, when we think about what the generational differences in technology adoption are, it really affects our IT departments. As we all know, budgets in Illinois are not going up. We are getting fewer and fewer dollars from the state. There are fewer and fewer grants available for technology adoption, and there's fewer and fewer incentives for faculty to adopt those in their classes. But the expectation that technology will be adopted is huge. It is huge. And if we are going to remember the millennial piece, they want to be able to find jobs as their number one piece. We have to be able to provide good transitions with technology, from learning in the classroom, using technology, to being out in the workforce and being able to use that technology. If you look here, from 18 to the 22-year-old group that wants to find a typical college student, today the population of learners who are 25 age or older is growing faster than the traditional college student. How does that change the face of our residential classes? How does that change what we do in residence? How many students do we have on campus who don't fit the 18 to 22-year-old model? Anybody have any ideas? I'm not sure either, but I know it's a good number. It's a good percentage. Our online students are always a little older than our on-campus students. And our average age for our online students who are in undergraduate programs is 34. Our online graduate age is 36. That's actually the demographic that is the prediction for all programs as we move forward. The 18 to 20-year-old population is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking in higher ed.
I think our average age is 24, 23, 23.8, I think, 'cause I remember I do that in my job. So that,
Yes.
that means the average is older than the 22 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
So at least half,
At
and
least
it's mean, but still half are younger than 22, but half are
But half are older.
More than half are older.
And that's the segment that's growing. And so as we think about any kind of programming, we had a discussion recently with some library folks about what kinds of library services are needed. Anything we think about, if we think that that age is creeping up, Now, have you all noticed some of the reports that have been coming out that now there's kind of a vogue now that if you are graduating from high school and you can afford to go, you should take a year off. You should take a year off. It's this break year is what, you know, the whole idea is. And then you don't even start college until a year later. So that changes again the face of who we are bringing into our programs, whether they're freshmen or whether they're coming back in online programs and they're bringing in that 30 hours of transfer credit. So our opportunities we need to continue to look for recruitment and for what we're doing to our transfer students and to how we bring in kind of that 23 to 26 year old. What really appeals to that group of students as we think about how generational changes happen and what kind of technology are they going to expect and want? So this is the technology pieces. If you compare Gen Z and millennials, smartphone, typically 15.4 hours per week. I would bet that's actually low, but that's what this particular survey said. TV, 13.2 hours per week, and laptops, 10.6. Millennials are still using desktops, 16.4. Smartphone, it's just barely under what the Gen Z was, so 14.8 on smartphones, and TV a little higher, 14.8. What I have found interesting is, as I've presented some of this information, is that many institutions tell me that they don't even have any TV options. If somebody wants TV, they can watch it on a device. So many campuses have even just taken the TV option completely away. They're not in student lounges, they don't have hookups for TVs in the dorms, and they've just taken out TVs. And I found that kind of interesting because I think, and maybe it's because we are where we are in the Midwest and we don't have a lot of other entertainment going on, but I still think kids do tend to watch TV. Do your kids watch TV? Netflix. So
Not so much traditional.
yeah, I don't think it's traditional TV. I think that's true. I don't think it's traditional
I saw
TV.
one of your numbers, they don't watch TV in real time.
They don't. It's not in real
I don't
time.
either anymore, but.
Yeah. It's
but,
not in real time. Most of us don't watch it in real time unless you want to watch the World Series, right? And then that's kind of hokey to watch that afterwards. But MLB hasn't caught up with that yet. So
You know, during sports events though, some people, and sometimes I do it, they'll tape the game and then start it a half hour, an hour later.
Yes.
And just go through the commercials.
that's right.
I like watching real time, but sometimes I have to do that, and it's.
To
that's-
condense it, to get rid of the
Well,
advertising.
there's so many commercials.
Oh, there are. There absolutely are. So this is the TV usage. So look where baby boomers are, and look at the devices that they watch them on. So Gen Z is using a tablet like Carissa has over here, and millennials are using that's supposed to be laptops or desktops. Gen X, they had their little TVs, you know, and then baby boomers have the big sets. And probably, you know, this is also going to have an impact on, we have all the flat screen TVs, and those are available in the bigger size you can get, right? And the number one time to buy to have flat screen TVs for sale for retailers is before the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is the number one time to buy a flat screen TV. How is that going to change? Is it? I don't know. What do you think? So, social media. How many of you use social media? Everybody in the room? Pretty much? Okay. So tell me, what is this? And this one?
Instagram.
And this one?
YouTube.
Snapchat?
Google Plus.
Twitter. Vine.
Fine. Okay. How many of those do you use? One? Michelle has 5, you have 3?
Because my kids taught me how to do Snapchat and stuff.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? How many do you use?
3.
4? 1? Cecilia? None? Okay, all right. Okay, did we get everybody? How many did you use? 1? Okay. All right. They all do something a little different, but they're all similar. So a lot of Gen Z students will pick a handful. They will know how to use them all. They will have an account with all of them, but they will pick those that are their favorites, and they will kind of go to those. Millennials, you see there's some crossover here. So you see they use Facebook more than Gen Z. Why do you think Gen Z kids are using Facebook? They're connecting with their parents and their grandparents.
Yeah, they don't like it. They don't like it because we're on it.
They only do it because they have relatives farther away and they're connecting with those cousins, aunts, uncles.
They'll tell you right
So-
to your face, Facebook is for old people.
They will tell you that Facebook is for old people. Millennials don't quite have that same approach, but and you can see that they use it quite a bit. If we had another one and baby boomers were on here, it would even be higher than the millennial group using it. All right, so we have Snapchat. You see the difference in Snapchat? Yeah. And Twitter. What do you think about Twitter? Is anybody in here like Twitter?
I like Twitter.
You like Twitter?
I
Okay.
used to like Twitter.
Okay.
But I've come to hate it.
What do you like about Twitter?
Mainly sports stuff.
Sports stuff.
I'll
With
catch up instant.
yeah. What do you hate about Twitter?
It's become a public lynch mob.
Yeah, that's
And
what I hate about it.
Sometimes it's hard to avoid that.
Yeah.
You know, you want to kind of just get the content you want, but that stuff's out there.
It is.
And I don't want it in my life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a lot
I'm
of
just not on it
scrolling.
very much anymore.
There's a lot of scrolling to get what you want.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. So you notice Vine is not in the millennial list, right? What is Vine?
6-second.
Videos.
6-second videos. 6-second videos. Now think about that. If that is just now beginning with Gen Z, and we all know that Gen Z is a population that has grown up using photos and video. How can we capture that? How can we utilize that as we work with students in our classes and on our campus? Ideas? When you think about our millennials, though, we have this group. What's that? Pinterest. So most recently I was at a marketing meeting and we are considering ways that we might be able to market using Pinterest. Now that takes a little creativity, but thankfully we have some millennials on our staff who are very creative with Pinterest. And so they are thinking about how this might help us to market our programs to millennials who are still interested in finding ways to complete their degree. All right, now we'll go back to this comment up here. So actively avoiding ads. So at the same time millennials and Gen Z are actively avoiding ads, young men in particular are early adopters of ad blocking software. How many of you have ad blocking software on your phones? I do. Anybody else? Ad blocking software helps you get rid of that annoying pop-up ad that's going on. It also helps retain your privacy. And it is very difficult to have privacy today. And most Gen Zers accept the idea that they are not going to live a perfectly private life, that they are going to be tracked through adware. But young men in particular don't like the tracking. They don't like the fact that the adware can follow them. And so Gen Zers are really, really adverse to having the tracking put on. How does that impact what we do at the university? I serve on a board for an organization and they wanted to be able to put out a report And they wanted it so that when people would download the report, that they could find out who those people were and where they were located. Well, I have some problems with that, but I know that is a very common practice for organizations. Have any of you gotten the emails, download this free ebook? Well, it's free, but you're also telling them things about you electronically. So, so my question is, as we move forward and we have a lot of millennials and Gen Z students, are they going to want to download the free piece knowing they're giving up their information, even if it's just simply their location? This article is one that you might find pretty interesting. EDUCAUSE has a group. Oh, it's not going to pull up. I'll have to fix that link for you. There is a report that talks about undergraduate students and their expectations and use of information technology. So I'll fix that link for you so that you can pull up that research study. But it's quite fascinating on what students believe about information technology and what they find useful. What they said in this report was that actually asking students what they need and then making sure that you incorporate some of those things into your classes, into your organizational activities, that those things are very important to this group of students, and that it is important to meet students' expectations for anytime, anywhere delivery. I know our ITS department works really hard to make that happen. There are some reports that ITS provides that tells how many different devices and types of devices are used across campus to pull down content from Blackboard. Menindra has reports that show how many different types of devices are used to pull in information from our web pages. He also has some fascinating data on where in the world that is coming from. And so those are things that campuses are paying attention to, and they're trying to figure out what are the best ways to utilize this material. So as you build content, you have to think of it in terms of, Michelle, you have your phone. Would you hold it up? So you see Michelle's phone, okay? And then would you hold up your iPad just a second? Okay. So did you notice Michelle's phone is going this direction, right? And Chris's iPad is this way. What's the difference between horizontal and vertical information being presented? Does your information go back and forth easily between the two devices? Or are you only developing your content so it could be used on a laptop? Think about the ways that you have you ever watched a movie on a laptop and it was one that was a widescreen, only your laptop isn't? Think about those kinds of things that happen as you develop your content. And if you need assistance in developing content, there are plenty of people on campus that can help you think about different devices and how students can pull that information in. Millennials prefer badges. This is really something that we have been talking a lot about in Colors. Badging is really, really important for millennials. Any guesses why? Okay, all right, very good question. So a badge is something that you get, something that you earn for something that you have achieved. Okay? I want you to think in terms of Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. Okay, anybody in here a scout or was? Was scout? Okay, all right. Oh, which one, Krista?
My daughter.
Your daughter is? Okay, and Michelle's been a scout leader. What do you get badges for, Michelle, in Boy Scouts?
Boy Scouts is various merit-related academics or other activities. So Cub Scouts is what I'm more familiar with, and that's ranges all over.
Yeah. So badging, that's the point. Badging can be anything. It can be that you have completed a module in a class. It can be that you have volunteered so many hours as a student. It can mean that you have read so many novels. It can mean anything that people say it means. Where it makes a difference is particularly in STEM areas, so like computer science, in math. If I learn this skill, I can code this kind of thing. I'm not a computer programmer, so I wouldn't know what it's actually called. But if I can do that, I earn a badge. Then I can take that badge, I can put it in my LinkedIn account, I can show prospective employers that I can do these skills. So, you ask, what does badging have to do with higher education? We're all about degrees. Well, we are, but part of the competition that we are going to see in the future is that employers and students who have now graduated and moved on want to be able to update their skills. They want to be able to show particular competencies that they received from your courses and from things that they did here on campus, both the academic and those things that are extracurricular, that are co-curricular. Those things are just as important. So if we have students who are volunteering with the APL every weekend during the time that they're a student here, that could be badged. If we have students who are learning specific ways to utilize materials and do research, that can be badged. We have an account set up with Credly. Credly is a badging, and since Emily's out, could people contact you, Carrie, if they need help with
Sure.
that? So if you wanted to badge something, Emily Bowles usually takes care of that, but she won't be back for a few weeks. But you can contact Carrie in the interim, and we can help you with the whole idea of badging. Millennials really like badging. They like to be able to put them on their accounts, on their own website, certainly with LinkedIn, and to be able to show that they have created a particular a merit badge for something. So badging is going to be, yes, John?
I was just going to say, even thinking on the individual course level, in one of the courses I teach, I implemented badging, so it's my course is divided into modules. Once a student completed all of the activities in the module, they would just get a little banner basically at the bottom that said, you've completed everything, congratulations.
Yes.
And then they can go in and check to see all of the modules that they've completed. And I had a student actually send me an email and thanked me for doing that. It's the only course that she had where there were badges that had been set up. And she said that it was actually a very rewarding feeling to earn those badges at the end. It was a motivating factor to make sure that she would actually complete everything that was required in order to get that badge.
Right.
And so just on an individual course level, I was amazed at how it could motivate students just to do the coursework.
Absolutely.
Learn in the process.
It's badging also came from the gaming industry. So the gaming industry has provided people with incentive. You get through a level, right? You get gold, or you get tokens, or you get a badge. And it's the same kind of idea. So it can be used as a motivator in your courses, whether they're face-to-face or whether they're online or some form of blended. When they hit a certain competency or they've achieved a goal, they get a little badge. Now those can be official badges through Credly, which you set up as having some merit outside the university, or as John uses, you can just have them as a badge in the class, and they can show that they have completed that in the course room. So there are a lot of different ways to use badges. I think badges are something that we need to pay attention to in higher ed. We've been talking about it for about, 9 years, 8 years, something like that. As more employers accept badges, I think they're going to be more important. We used to call them certificates a lot of times in higher ed, and we can still have certificates that are more official, but badges can also be a way that students can earn those certifications. I want to show you this video. I think this is an extremely well done piece. This young man is from Korea, so he has a little bit of an accent, so listen closely, but there's also captioning, so you should be able to read it if you don't understand it.
I was born in 2005. The year North Korea announced they have nuclear weapon.
In the last few weeks, a large amount of ugly, malicious information has
The same year Michael Jackson was found not guilty of child molestation charges. 1 year after I was born, the opposition parties in Singapore won 2 world. In our lifetime, we will not send a single letter by mail. But we would spend at least 20% of our time on social media. Having too many gadgets also has a bad impact. We rather stay indoors and use our gadgets than play outdoors and be active. We have terrible social skills. We are 10 times more likely to smile to a handphone than a person. Our attention span is as short as a goldfish. We have 10 seconds before you lose us. If I go to university, I would be looking at a heavy study load. When I graduate, I will be competing in a tight job market against 7 million for talent. A plumber is more likely to get a job. I would choose to live with my parents until I'm 45. Even if I have to share the same bed with my brother. Housing is going to be too expensive. I will meet my future wife in a dating website. With plastic surgery and makeup, all girls will look like some Korean actress. We are told we are special, and we believe it. I want to be an MP when I grow up. I'll work from home at my dining table next to my teacher. I will deliver my speech with a green screen behind me. I'll wear a shirt, a tie, and a pair of shorts. I don't need to control the media. All I need is a Facebook and YouTube account. Yes, we can, just like Obama. I'm scared.
Are you well, Keegan? Make sure that Judah can see you.
I think so.
So what do you think of that young man's ideas and thoughts?
Some of it's scary, some of it funny.
Yeah, it's humorous, but there is some of it that's scary, and he's right on about, really bad social skills for this group. Rather be inside with technology than outside playing or getting exercise.
I really like the 10 times more likely to smile at a phone than a person.
Yes, yes. Have you ever made it your goal to walk across campus and to physically speak and smile to every student who has their head down with their phone? Now, it would require that we look away from our phones, right? I mean, that's the other piece of it. Because we're just as bad. You see people across campus and they're running from one meeting to the next and they have their phone in front of them trying to catch up on email between meetings. But sometimes it's a real pleasure for students to actually have some eye contact from someone and someone to say hello. And for many of our students, that may be the only kind hello they get all day. So think about this young man's perceptions about what is going on with his generation. Did you catch? He said, "We're told we're special,
And believe it.
and we believe it." And that is very, very true of this generation. They believe themselves to be special, that they can do anything. And that has both positive and negative side effects. All of these things do. So again, not to stereotype or put these kids in a box, but this is the world these kids live in. This is the world they are growing up in. And so as we think about what is going to happen as we have the kids come, thinking about the fact that there are going to be fewer Gen Z students while we continue to grow millennials, but that their expectations between those Gen Z students and those millennial students are very different. So, what are the skills that we need to teach? What shall we teach? So we need to become learning guides. We need to embrace technology. Notice I didn't say you have to like it, but embrace it, encourage educational freedom, and teach risk-taking. Understand that speed of access matters, just what you said earlier. Those are the things that we have to teach. Now, as we teach those things, it's also really critical that we teach these new students as they come in that the world doesn't necessarily react in the way that they are expecting it to. People are not going to respond within seconds to a request. Part of it is that whole educational process of learning what are the expectations across the board and how does what the Gen Z students expect correspond with what the millennial students expect. And remember, we have 5 generations, so all the way back to that veteran generation, what's the difference? Have any of you ever done an exercise where you included different generational groups in a single group to work together? They learn so much from each other, don't they, Cecilia? But there are tensions, aren't there? Anything you experienced you'd like to share?
Oh. It sort of goes both ways, and it's mostly a dichotomy of people with a lot of experience out in the workforce wanting to say to a less experienced group that that will never work, you don't understand, and the other group saying back, you're not willing to try new things, where's your passion?
Right. So what do we do as educators when we kind of combine those kind of generational groups? We help them get prepared for the workforce. This is one of those soft skills that employers desperately need, and yet when they talk about higher education, they give us absolutely no credit for teaching those types of things. And I think it's really important that our students understand when you're placing them in groups of your choosing, when they're working with students across the board and they're learning to deal with people who have different expectations and different levels of experience, that they are learning a soft skill that absolutely cannot be duplicated finding a Google site on their phone. This is a really important skill. And so when we think about our discipline-specific skills, we have technical skills, conceptual skills, interpersonal skills, and then that last one, entrepreneurial and innovation skills. It kind of goes to what Cecilia was talking about. Sometimes we have students who are really passionate about what they do. A student recently gave a presentation at ATC on an app that he and a group of students, international students, would like to build to help more international students as they come reconnect with the Springfield community. Really cool idea. But it's all about their ability to take a risk, to step out and be innovative, and to do this entrepreneurial idea. When we think about being able to problem solve, it's really important that we use strong pedagogy as we think about what we're using in our classes. And this is a wheel. You all know Bloom's taxonomy, right? So Bloom's taxonomy, it takes Bloom's taxonomy and it actually attaches apps that you can use to build on those areas of Bloom's taxonomy. So to remember and understand, you see where we have apps, which include Facebook, Google search, iAnnotate. Those apps can actually underscore that you are trying to help students remember and understand concepts. If we go to apply, we see here we have explain everything. Lane Morse uses that in his classes all the time. What is the one Marcel uses? Who remembers? Show me. Show me is another one that does the exact same thing. Lane likes explain everything. Marcel likes show me. This is analyze, and we have all of these that help analyze, which includes some things like FileMaker and just numbers, pages. Those things are equivalent to pages is Word and numbers is Excel. Then evaluate. We we have these apps, which would include Skype, Edmodo, Google+, a lot of social media pieces, and then Create. And VoiceThread is my particular favorite. I really like VoiceThread. It allows you to post videos, have discussions, you have little bubbles. It also allows you to, if someone has a comment that they've made about something, you can actually go in and make that a teachable moment and drop in particular thoughts and content about whatever it is that they mentioned. So this is on the website, and I would encourage you to find one or two of those tools that work well with what you're trying to do in your class. We're running out of time. I told you this was going to be 3.5 hours in 1 hour. That's really hard to do, but we'll see what we can do here. I wanted to get to the slash careers. Slash careers are what the younger millennials, the ones that are still in college, and the Generation Z are looking at. They want to be able to have a kind of dual career approach. So one might be, I'm a teacher slash freelance writer. I'm a business associate slash waiter. I'm an administrative assistant slash photographer. I'm a middle manager, but I'm also slash an adjunct faculty member. How many of you have slash careers or have had in your life?
My whole life.
Your whole life?
Yes.
Okay. So
I've been a
this is not
slasher.
a new concept. Many of us have done, we have a full-time job, our day job, and then we have our night job, right? And a lot of us do that. But we don't think about it in terms of as we prepare our students for careers. So what are we preparing them for? So when we think about the freelance writer, how could we prepare a student who is maybe a computer science student to also be a freelance writer? Ideas?
Giving them writing assignments. and
Holding them
encouraging
to a certain level of writing assignments, absolutely. Any of these things that we're saying is the slash career are embedded in many of our programs and are certainly embedded in liberal arts. And again, the media doesn't give us a lot of kudos for doing those things, but we are preparing students not only for their first career, but their slash career. And I think that's really important for us to remember, and especially as we're talking about students who are passionate about something, it may not be how they pay their bills, but it may be that slash career that gives them a sense of satisfaction. So reward systems. When we talk about motivating students, Generation Z need rewards that are changed frequently. It's really important not to choose something and then do it all the time, because they need frequent change. Now think about if they're looking at something on their phone, how often do they change the page they're looking at? Do they go back and back and back to the same page? So we're really thinking about just coming up with reward systems that work with students who are inundated with media and can make choices. Choices are always a really good thing for this generation. Learning preferences craves regular technology-enhanced opportunities. They're looking for professional development that uses visually enhanced methods of training. And then I've got a whole list of articles and research studies at the bottom, and I thought that I would just leave you there with the research on it if you want to delve deeper. I'll fix that one link on EDUCAUSE, and we are at the end of our time together. So does anybody have any final comments or thoughts about this generation? Yes?
If they don't like email, what's the best practice for communicating with them? Can people set up sort of groups where you can use an app?
Yeah, so the best thing is it's a course,
Yeah.
course things, and you want it to go out to the whole course, is Remind. Remind is an app that you can use that will, they have to opt in, so they have the choice not to. So if they choose not to opt in, then they won't get the information, and we need to make that clear up front. But Remind will allow you then to send anything from, remember there's a test on Tuesday, to remember class is canceled today and you should be in the library working on your project, or whatever else it is that you want to send. So that app is very easy to install. The other thing that I would mention to all of you is if you encourage students to call or text you, that you can get a Google Voice number, and then you do not have to share your personal cell phone with your students. You are given a Google Voice number. You can have it go to your cell phone, your office phone, your home phone, all three, but you don't have to have students out there with your personal cell numbers. If you need help setting up Google Voice, call John. John is our Google expert, so he can help you with that. Those are good questions. Anything else? Any other final thoughts? I hope, yes.
This might be a bigger question, but are there ways to incorporate this in ways that don't discriminate against the low-income students or the rural students that live in a place with no Wi-Fi or have a phone that's pay-as-you-go?
Absolutely, and so that's really one of the questions that often is asked, because it is difficult for students who don't have options. A lot of the students do have options for cell. So that's why apps like Remind are helpful, because then they can pull in a quick message, but they don't have to download anything. And so what you want to stay away from is anything that has to be downloaded. Also, at UIS, we do have a checkout program. So you can have students go down and check out. If you wanted to have them check out a tablet or a laptop, you can see ITS for that. We also have Kindle checkouts in the library. So we do have some options for students here on that are available in those two areas on campus. If they don't have access to Wi-Fi, typically they live in an area that is covered by either a district or public library, and they would be able to get limited service there. And of course, if they do live somewhere where there's a restaurant, even a McDonald's that has Wi-Fi, they can pull in that way. But it is good to know where your students are coming from, because it helps them then to find, you can help them with some suggestions on how to find some ways. So yes, I think that's a really good point. Don't just throw it out there and expect that all of your students are going to have a smartphone, because they aren't. Some of them are going to have a flip phone that they just add minutes to as needed. Most of them will have a phone. There will be a few that don't. And there used to be, are there still iPods available at ITS for checkout? ITS also had some iPods. I don't know if they have any left or not, as they've gotten destroyed over the years. It's also good too to have an alternate, to have an option. So yeah, so you know, if you are going to send something in Remind, also put it in Blackboard in announcements, so that students can pull up Blackboard and get your announcements. That way they may not want to be able to do it texting through Remind. So options are better than no options. Other thoughts, questions? Good conversation. Well, please go to the website, explore it more. If you find good articles, good information, and research that's being done, because obviously this is, Gen Z is fairly new, right? And so share those with me. I would really appreciate it. All right, have a great day.